we are sitting on kind of the cusp of some of these technologies that we're doing today, but maybe not as pervasive as we will see in the next couple of years.
Hello and welcome to another Coffee with Mr. IoT. My name is Robert Schmidt. I am Deloitte's Chief IoT Technologist, and today my guest is Mary Beth Hall, Director of Wireless Strategy and Marketing at Panasonic. Mary Beth, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Robert. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
So, Mary Beth, tell us a little bit of what that means, wireless strategy to you at Panasonic. I've looked through your LinkedIn and resume. You have a very impressive resume. You've done a variety of different interesting things. You've been an evangelist. So tell me a little bit about that. What does that mean for Panasonic, and what does it mean for you?
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Yeah, for Panasonic, I manage the wireless strategy. So I make sure that whether it's our police officers, law enforcement, our healthcare, our workers that are using our Toughbooks, I make sure that they're connected. So making sure our devices are certified on the network, they're wirelessly enabled, and also making sure they have the latest technology. So that's my role when it comes to the wireless piece. We also work with our counterparts in Japan, so the product engineers, to make sure we've got the latest and greatest when it comes to antennas and other wireless options that customers need.
The Toughbook. I don't know. I've seen Toughbooks around for a long time. I don't know if you work on one and you can't lift it to us, but I mean, what are those? Those are like some really special laptops, and some of us actually need them in daily life because I'm bad with my laptop. I don't know. Tell us about the Toughbook.
Sure. Yeah, no, the Toughbook has been around. We're going to be 25 years old next year. We are in the niche space, I guess you would say, right, with rugged computing. Whatever device that you need in those kind of austere type conditions, our laptop is perfect for them. We've adopted a couple of things based on voice of the customer, actually. We're very in touch with our customers and make modifications based on some of their recommendations. So law enforcement, fire, and EMS are a big part of our customer base, but also the federal government space, transportation and logistics, large delivery services, love our form factor of our handhelds. And then we've got two-in-ones too. So that we combine the laptop and the tablet. So it really gives you that diverse portfolio so that you can just grab it and go. So fire loves that because they can grab the small tablet and be able to use that when they're out at a fire, or in the office, they can just dock it really quick and be able to use it as a laptop. We have a couple models that fire and rescue folks love because we've got thermal imaging on it, so they can see heat density. So those are some features that we've added to our Toughbooks to make sure that they are appropriate for each of the jobs that they're trying to do.
So police officer, fire department, they have these things. If you'd compare this to the regular one out there, would you have said that they are ahead of the market when they have what it comes to computing, or are they sort of like behind what you and I carry around on a day-to-day basis? Because I'm asking this because I've always was very impressed when you drive by a cop car, or more likely the car. I should probably say the cop car drives by me, because the other way around wouldn't be good. But when they drive by me, I mean, they have the laptop there. They seem to be connected. They can pull up my data right away. What can you tell us about it without telling us stuff we shouldn't know?
No, not at all. No, we always have the latest processors in our tablets. So we make sure, and our laptops, right? So the officers do have the latest when it comes to technology. I think, officers will use a Panasonic Toughbook a little differently than you might use a Mac or a Lenovo device at home, because they do need the ruggedization of it. And then they need like the backlight. There's a lot of features on there that we can provide. The laptop we just launched at the end of last year was our 55. What we decided to do, and I think all of us can agree that we love devices that we can do dual purposes with. So we launched the 55, and you can actually exchange different components. So we call them X packs. So you don't need an IT department to do it. I could do it as an officer or a firefighter on the job. I could take out different pieces and add extra battery. I can add an SD. I can add a CD player if I still need that, depending on my department and how I'm using video software or something like that, or if I need a fingerprint reader, if I'm a detective. So depending on the role within the agency, we've created that flexibility right within our device. And our law enforcement and our federal community loves that ability to be able to change it out and have one device for an entire department, but each role can use it in a little different way. And I think when I mentioned earlier about talking about how we innovate regarding the voice of the customer, we talk to our customers, of course, every day, but we like to understand what are some of the unique challenges that they're facing. And of course, we're all facing different challenges at this moment in time, and so we'll be innovating based on some things that they're telling us now. But a lot of what I just described, customers told us about. You know, some of my detectives, they need the fingerprint reading, but my e-ticket guys, they need something different, right? So those are some of the things that we make sure that we do and, evolve our laptops as we go forward.
I'm smiling because I love how you call them my officers and my e-ticking guys. That's personal service. I like that when you start really getting close to your customers that way. So you talk about unique use cases. What was one of those use cases that surprised you the most? What was one of those where you kind of like went like, oh, I didn't see that one coming, and then you realized it was really valuable?
I don't know if you've ever seen it, but we have a handheld device. It's a little different than a smartphone because it's mostly used for data. And we use this device for ID scanning. So I know casinos are not as to where they were prior to the pandemic, but most of them need to be able to understand if the guests are of age to be able to gamble. And so they can go ahead and scan a license or a passport right there on the job and provide the service that they need. And they can do it all on the same device. Which is a great benefit. So now those service providers only need one device in the casinos to be able to do that. So that was pretty unique.
It is very unique. So I've seen you talk a lot about 5G. What does 5G? Let me start by admitting and confessing that, I love the promise of 5G, and yet I'm a little I've heard about 3G, I've heard about 4G, about all of those before they were really available. And then I just got my new Pixel, and guess what? I see that it's here and there says 5G, so I was kind of surprised by that. But I'd like to hear from you. What does 5G mean to you? What does it mean to, as you said, law enforcement, our officers, our firefighters, the federal workers? What does it mean? What's your take on that?
Yeah, Robert, I'm with you on it. There's so much I can do on my phone today that I feel like I don't know if I need it. But I think for me and for Panasonic, we're looking to 5G as the next technology and really that foundational piece, which will allow, let's say, our officers to be able to redact video software really quickly and on the job. Now, today they can do that, but it does take a couple more minutes than it will on 5G. I think we're all pervasively connected, if you will, whether that's our gazillion IoT devices, right? Each of us I have several devices. I've got the iWatch, if you will, all those kinds of things. Officers are in the same boat, or our federal war fighters or our transportation and logistics workers, right? We're all kind of connected. So 5G, I think, will help us be able to connect multiple devices. And the latency is also one that, less than 1 millisecond to be able to communicate information, so that when an officer is out on a job or a mission, they're going to be able to get that information where they need it. I think things like the edge computing, being able to get the data where we need it, will enable things like smart cities. So that will really help cities be able to handle events, which today they're handling, of course, and maybe that'll just give them that real-time data. I think it's going to evolve just like it did with 4G, which enabled the gig economy and things like that. I think we are sitting on kind of the cusp of some of these technologies that we're doing today, but maybe not as pervasive as we will see in the next couple of years. To your point, though, I think the carriers are catching up. We've got some carriers that are ahead of us. They each kind of have a different way of strategy going after 5G. And it's going to take some time for them to be able to build it out as they did 4G. I think one of the other biggest differences is 4G isn't going away. It's going to evolve, right? And so you are going to have 4G where, and 5G, where 2G, 3G, we kind of, we just sunsetted 3G, or Verizon just did here in the US, right? So that's going to be very different than what we'll see for 5G.
You have an interesting background. You've worked for Verizon before, and now you work for a hardware manufacturer in a way, right? What's your sort of like, where do you feel your heart, or are you heart in both? You've lived in both worlds. How do you bring your wireless stuff to that now? I'm curious about that bridge.
Yeah, it was interesting when I first got to Panasonic, because I had always did the new technologies at Verizon. So I started up the IoT group when we called it telemetry, and we called it machine to machine, right? So you probably remember those days. It wasn't that sexy new product that it is now, right? And I was never on the other side, right? So I brought in all the OEMs, brought them through the IoT process, open development, and all those kinds of things. And then I was always looking at Panasonic on the other side, and loved, that they were in this niche market, really focused on their customers. And when I started looking at other opportunities, I just thought this was a great fit for me. I like the close contact to the customer. And being able to talk to them as well as to my marketing counterparts. It's a nice balance.
That makes sense. I get that. It's sort of like the people you worked with before, you knew them in a way that many don't. So that's interesting, super interesting. So let's talk a little bit IoT. Tell me, what does IoT mean to you today? Where does it play in? You have an interesting space, right? Because most of your Toughbooks don't connect. I mean, my stuff is almost all wireless, Wi-Fi, right? And, I have my phone that's obviously through the provider, but other than that, not much. For you, that must be very different. Most of your customers do not have Wi-Fi around them. They connect differently. And how do they connect to devices around them? What's special about this? What IoT devices do they connect with? And you talked about smart city. I mean, in a way, almost all your customers are part of the city, right? This is sort of like they are an integrated part of that. So how does that all connect? How does it not connect? Where would you like it to connect? What's your take on it?
Yeah, there's a couple things, right? So we can start with, maybe let's start with utility. We haven't really talked about the utility sector, right? And they are a very unique group, using rugged devices. They've got a combination of being on the road and being, they've got SCADA, they've got CBRS, private networks, wireless, right? They've got a host of connectivity options. But when it comes to Panasonic and our ruggedized devices, they need something in the middle to be able to connect those IoT devices and the sensors that they need. And they use the rugged laptops or the two-in-ones to be able to do that. The other thing that we see is drones. So utilities are using drones, our fire EMS, our law enforcement, our federal customers, even a little T&L, right, are still using drones. And they're using the tablet form factor to be able to control the drone. So you're seeing some IoT there, but connecting all those different sensors to one location and having that be reliable is where we're kind of the glue that glues all the devices together. So we're like kind of the heart of the whole connection and that evolution, whether that's utilities, smart cities in the case of law enforcement or fire and EMS. In transportation and logistics, we see that in the manufacturing line in a couple different ways. In our mobility side, they're using handhelds and tablets for forklift type solutions in the manufacturing and the warehouse plant. And then, those devices need sensors inside. And so then they get connected either to a tablet or our handhelds in the vehicle. And then when they get to the location, sometimes they're going to, let's say, a retail or a grocer. We've got sensors that do the labels in our groceries stores so that grocery stores can quickly assess their inventory. You've seen those types of sensors. Panasonic makes them. So you've got that connection. Let's say you're going to the quick service restaurants. Maybe that's really where you want to focus on. We've got our smart lockers, where many of us are moving to go since we weren't able to eat in restaurants. So we've seen a big uptick there where customers want to be able to order their food, get a text message, be able to go pick it up with a code in the locker, and they're on their way. Whether that's they're getting it delivered through one of the platforms like Uber Eats, or a different one that they like, or directly from the dining location, we can provide that as well. So we see it a couple different ways, but we are always the glue that's connecting all of the IoT devices in many of these cases. I didn't even talk about the manufacturing line too. I guess I should mention that too. Panasonic is also known for factory solutions. So we do a lot with, Industry 4.0 and connecting some of the sensors on the line. I think you would agree that, it's great to have all these sensors and the data that's coming in, but if you don't know how to read the data or the data isn't actionable, then it's really not helpful. So we've got a lot of products that have software that's enabled. Panasim is one of our branded products that works in the manufacturing plant, mostly on things like you think about the modules and SMT type welding type products. We can provide all kinds of software to be able to manage it from receiving to, a completed product. And that our smart manufacturing group, they can go in as the consulting. And if you've got non-Panasonic hardware, we can help you make that more efficient. But all connected from IoT to wireless to Wi-Fi. Sometimes, it doesn't matter what the connectivity is. We're able to provide that information that customer needs to be able to move their business forward.
Super interesting how far you stretch from laptops to drones to sensors and solutions. I have to out myself, not that people wouldn't know, but I had just to reach behind me to grab one of those drones that I fly in my spare time. Nobody pays me for that, but hey, it's fun anyhow. So
it's fun. Does it take pictures, Robert?
Oh my God. Okay, now that you asked, I'll tell you. Not only does it take video here, that's a stripped down GoPro. It has a different name, but I'm not going to say that, but it's stripped down without a housing. And then it has a high definition camera here. And what I do is I fly with this with super goggles on my face, so it looks like I'm in it. I'm flying around like I'm in it. And it's super interesting. You talked about firefighters, right? There is smaller versions of this. This is fairly large. This is 4 inches in diameter. They have small ones that are about this big. And fire, as well as security, police, and so forth, personal protection, they use these small ones to fly inside ducts and houses underneath it to check out what's going on. So very interesting stuff you can do. So let's look forward for a second, Mary Beth, and close out with, I'd like to sort of hear, what do you think we aren't doing yet? Where do you think you and I, you on the hardware side, also software, us on the inside on IoT, need to go from here? What are we missing? What's not there yet? What's your take on that?
There's a couple things. I think when you think about on the human side, right? I think we can do a lot with IoT. I mean, we've always talked about being able to have some type of sensor on our body or in our body. I mean, why
You
do I
gotta do
have
that? You gotta put one in your body? You ready for that?
why not? I'm ready. I mean, might as well
Me too.
track me. You're already tracking me. The other thing, like, but why do I have to enter in my calories and my steps and all that kind of thing, right? Why can't you just do it right from me? But I think from an officer side, right, or from a firefighter, I would love to be able to know when their heart rate is raising so that I can keep them safe. Or if things are getting too dangerous because, you just showed me the drone, right? A lot of our fire and EMS are using that to go into to buildings that are on fire. They could use that and they could have something on their wearable that they're doing it as well. Our war fighters need it, whether they're Army, Navy, or Marines. They're constantly needing it. And actually, they use our N1 handheld for that as well. They're going to be using it right on their wrist because they need the extra compute power when they're not using it in those scenarios. So that's the challenge that I think we've got to face is how can we make these devices multi-purposeful? Like I mentioned with the 55 that we did. So I think
So
that's
bring it
one
closer
piece
to
that
us.
I'd
You
like.
said human, right? Bring it more human, bring it closer to us. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen, but they just started a sailing race, single-handed, one person around the world without stopping. It's called the Vendée Globe. And there's a British sailor called Alex Thompson. And he has continuously an arm, like it's a band that sits up here. And you can actually watch on the internet now what's his heart rate, what's the max heart rate, when does he sleep, and what's his calorie consumption. And I don't know how accurate this is, but another data point I thought was super interesting, and this goes back to what you said. This is why I said yes, please. I asked the doctor once, what's the sensor he wants the most, and he said something in your stomach area. And man, would I like to know what I do with my food rather than, just sort of
guessing.
count some things online that I think I do. So anyhow. Mary Beth, anything we didn't talk about? Anything that I missed asking you? Anything you want to share before we close it out?
I think you covered most things. Yeah, you did a great job. It was so much fun talking to you.
Thank you, Mary Beth. I enjoyed talking with you too. It's great having you. Congrats to what goes on with your Toughbook and all the good things that you do with it, because really they are a service to all of us in many, many ways and sometimes forgotten. So thank you for that. And with that, we have another coffee chat coming to an end. Thank you so much for watching. If you missed any of today's show or previous shows, check out our playlist on YouTube or podcast, and have a great and safe day. Bye.